Alright guys, welcome to section 4.1 of Math 0314. Today we're going to talk about integer exponents and scientific notation. So the first thing I want to talk about is what are exponents? Exponents are those little numbers at the top right corner. These are called exponents. Another way, fancier way of saying it is it's the superscript next to the number. The number itself, what I'm referring to as the number, is actually the base. Okay, and what an exponent basically tells you is how many times do you need to multiply that number by itself. So 3 squared means 3 times 3. 3 cubed means 3 times 3 times 3. And 3 to the 4th means 3 times 3 times 3 times 3. What it essentially does is it just tells you how many times a number is going to multiply by itself. Now, clearly exponent rules can get a little bit more complicated than this, but this is just the initial concept to grasp. Common mistakes is when people see 3 squared, your mind always gravitates towards the simplest solution, so your mind sometimes will think numbers next to each other, so I'll say 6. But clearly 3 times 3 is 9. So just be careful with yourself as you work through these problems and don't make that common mistake. So 3 cubed, 3 to the 3rd is 27, and 3 to the 4th is 81. So just be careful. Don't say 6, 9, or 12 there. Okay, we're not multiplying numbers by the exponent, or bases by the exponents. Okay, with that out of the way, let's take a look at the sort of situations you'll see. And what I want to stress here is that when you look at this, understand what it means. So what negative 2 to the 4th means is I'm taking negative 2 and I'm multiplying by itself 4 times, which would be 16. Okay. However, when we look at B, this means you're taking 2 and you're multiplying it by itself 4 times, and then all of that's going to be multiplied by negative 1, and that'll get you negative 16. Okay, so notice that if it has the parentheses, you include the negative when you multiply them together, and when it doesn't, then you don't. And that's something also that's very, very important. If you use a calculator to do these sorts of things, so a lot of times people mean that A, but they type in B. And the other point I'd like to make here is that the reason why we follow this, the reason why this works, is because of PEMDAS. So math has a grammar inside of itself, and exponents come before you multiply. So in part B, the reason why we do 2 to the 4th first is because we do exponents before we multiply, and then we would multiply by negative 1. Okay, so hopefully that's clear. Let's look at the next one. So the other component to this that's important to realize is that anytime you have a negative exponent, that is going to flip the number. So a negative exponent means almost, you can think of it, if this makes it easier, it means the reciprocal. So my next question to you would be, is what I wrote just now, is that correct? And I would hope that you would say, no, it actually is not correct, because this is, like in the previous example, not in parentheses. So that means I'm going to raise 1/2 to the 4th, or multiply 1/2 by itself 4 times, and then multiply by a negative. This would end up giving me negative 1/16. The next one, and later on I'll explain why this is true, but anytime you raise something to the 0 power outside of 0, you get 1. So because all of that is raised to the 0 power, you get 1. So what would then the answer be to E? Well, I hope you didn't say 1 or negative 1. I hope you said negative 7. And the reason why it's negative 7 is only x is being raised to the 0, whereas in D, all of it's raised to 0. So this is negative 7 times 1, or simply negative 7. Okay. So the next couple ones, let me see if I can pull them up for you. go ahead and run through these next 5 problems on your own. They're very similar to the last ones that we did. If you need to review back, go ahead and review back. But pause the video now, give it a shot, see if you can do it on your own. Going to assume that you did that, and now let's run through it together. So what did we do for F? Hopefully you wrote -3 times -3 because it's in parentheses, and this will give me a +9. But in G, hopefully you said -3 times 3 because only the 3 is being squared, which would give me -9. In H, I hope that you put a negative on the outside and then you wrote the reciprocal of 3 twice, which is 1/3. And I hope that everyone's okay with my language now, but reciprocal just means you take the numerator and the denominator. Remember, this number is not just 3, it's 3/1, and you flip them, hence we get 1/3. I is taking the whole thing raised to the 0 power, so as long as y is not 0, this is going to equal to 1. But in J, this is going to be -8 times 1, which is -8. And that's no different than the last two here. Okay? So hopefully that makes sense. Let's just keep going. All right, in 2a, we're going to be multiplying things together. Now remember, this means that I have 3 x's, and then I have 5 x's, and the last one means I have 1/x twice. So what's going on here? Well, let's take the first part. If I have 3 here and I have 5 here, then that means I have a total of 8 x's, hence x to the 8th. And here I have 2 on the bottom, so I have x squared. So I'm going to write this out to be clear here. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 x's and 2 on the bottom. Well, we know when things match up, as long as these are not 0, these will divide through and leave me with how many? Hopefully you said 6. So what did we realize here? Well, one way of looking at this, right? We added these together. And you can literally add all of these together. So we could have just said 3 plus 5 plus -2, which is 6. So when you multiply, now, very important, the bases have to be the same. So the bottom number has to be the same. But if the bottom number is the same, then you simply add the exponents. It's going to be, well, what does this mean? What about when we divide? Well, we have the rule right here, right? How did I get 6? Well, if you have 8 and we took away 2, this means that what we really have in this scenario is that when we divide, we subtract the exponents, right? So that means when I look over here, this is nothing more than y to the 7 minus 4, which is y cubed. And I encourage you, if you're struggling with these notions, literally write out 7 y's and 1, 2, 3, 4 y's on the bottom and divide them out and see how many y's you're left with. Okay? There's nothing wrong with writing things out to remember the rules. Even when I was a student, I never memorized the rules. I would just do exactly what I did at the bottom here and remind myself what the rule is. And I encourage you to do that. I encourage you to think in that manner so that it's too much if you try to memorize everything. But if you understand what it means, why it's true, then you can always rehash it later. Let's go on to 2C. Okay, so we said that the negative means reciprocal, so this means that this is the same thing as 1/b squared to the 5th. Now, when we raise something to the 5th, I could write this out as 1/b squared 5 times, which I'll go ahead and do to explain what I'm saying. Wrote it a little too big, so I'll put the last one here. So if we write it out 5 times, then we know when we multiply we add. So this would be 1/b to the 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2. And I hope that you see that that is the same thing as b to the 2 to the 5th, which is what the rule is. So anytime you raise something to another power, you multiply. And this would be 1/b to the 10th. Okay? Or if you wanted to, you could say b to the -10, which, by the way, if I just multiplied these together, that's exactly what I would end up getting. Okay, so however you want to play it is fine with me. All right, so why don't you try 2D, 2E, and 2F on your own. So we assume that you've given it a shot and you know what to do here. So one thing to notice is that if there's just W, then that's W to the first power, and the rules that, like we said before, we just add them. So 7 plus negative 3 plus 1, which gives me W to the fifth. And 2E, we're dividing, so we're going to subtract. And there we have it. And 2F, I said we multiply, so this is either P to the negative 8 or 1 over P to the 8th. What they will usually say, if they want 1 over P to the 8th, they'll say, we'll want all the exponents to be positive. Okay. So now we're going to combine everything that we've discussed thus far. So what does a negative mean? Well, a negative means that we're going to do the reciprocal. So we have 5 cubed. What does the negative mean? Negative means we're going to do the reciprocal. So 1 over t squared. What does it mean when you raise something to the 0 power? That's 1. So the next bit, what is 5 cubed? Well, 5 cubed, hopefully you did not say 15. 5 cubed is 5 times 5 times 5, which is 125. 2 squared is 4, so this is 1 over 4 plus 1. Now I know $1 and a quarter, if you take a quarter away from $1, I got 75 cents, so I'm left with negative 3/4. So I'm left with 125 minus 3/4, and I could approach this in a couple of ways. I know that if I took away 3/4 from $1, I'd be left with 25 cents, so I can say 124 and a quarter, or 124.25, or if I wanted to, I could write this as an improper. 125 over, we would rewrite 125 as 125 over 1 and multiply top and bottom by 4. So this would be 4 times 125. Think of it this way. 25 times 4 is $1. Like 25 cents times 4 is $1. So 100. 4 times 1 is 400. So 100 and 400 is 500. So this is 500 minus 3 all over 4, which would give me 497 over 4. So, I hope that you are comfortable doing it in both manners. Obviously, if the question said write the number as either a decimal or as a fraction, writing it as a decimal does seem to be easier, but you should be able to truly easily convert between the two. You should be able to work with both of these. Okay, let's keep going. All right, so go ahead, if you haven't done so already, pause the video and give this one a shot on your own. I'm going to assume that you've done that now, and let's talk about it together. So, 2/3 raised to the negative 1. Once again, we know that when we're raised to a negative, that means we're going to do the reciprocal. 4 to the negative 1, once again, we know that that means the reciprocal. And 1/4 to the 0, we know that this is going to just simply be 1. So let's clean this up. So here I think it's best to just get everything to have the same denominator. So 1 I'm going to rewrite as 1 over 1 first. And then I'm going to multiply by 2 on the top and bottom here, and 4 on the top and bottom here. So this is going to be 6 plus 1 plus 4 over 4, which is 11 over 4. And there's my answer. Alright, let's just keep, well, you could, let's go back to this format. So just so that I'm clear here, because it's not really hard to do as fractions. So 3/2 is 1.5, because it's 2. 3/2 is 2 over 2 plus 1 over 2, right? So that's 1 plus 0.5. So this is 1.5. This is 0.25. And this is 1. So if I put them together, I have $1.50 plus 25 cents. That's $1.75. Plus another $1 is $2.75. makes sense. So either way is fine. Here I think the fraction is actually easier. So also notice that some scenarios one method is better than the other. And it just depends on the situation. You should be comfortable with either way. All right, number 5, we're kind of combining all the rules here. So when you raise to a power, we said we're going to multiply. And what's incredibly important is that you multiply every exponent. So this 2 and this 4 is actually 2 to the 1 and 4 to the 1. So we're going to multiply everything by the exponent. We're going to get 2 cubed, a to the 21 because we're multiplying, and b to the negative 12. All over 4 squared, a to the 6, and b to the negative 4. So from here, it's an issue of preference. I'm going to go ahead, and I could convert 4 into 2 squared and clean it up, but these numbers are not too bad, so I'm going to go ahead and do 2 cubed, which is 8, and 4 squared, which is 16, and that's just going to break down to 1 over 2, right? So I have 2 cubed memorized, and what you want is, the way I actually ended up memorizing is I never actually directly just sat there and memorized cubes, and I don't encourage that either. But once I see that 2 cubed is 8, I try to remember that 2 cubed is 8. And as you keep working through problems, you're going to see that over and over and over again. So in time, hopefully your cubes get memorized. We also have a to the 21 over a to the 6. And hopefully you recall that when you divide, you subtract. So this would be a to the 21 minus 6, which would be 15. And you know what? Let me do that. Let me write it out, actually. A to the 21 minus 6. And with b, what I'm going to go ahead and do, because they're both negative, we know negative means reciprocal, so I'm going to actually flip the position of both of them. So we have this. So we know, again, we subtract, so this would be b to the 4 minus 12. And I'll just continue to clean it up. So this will be a to, like I said, the 15th, and this is going to be b to the negative 8. Now, usually they don't like exponents on the top, so we'll leave this as, and actually we don't like to write 1 when it's 1 over 2. So we'll leave this as, because we have 2 on the bottom, we'll leave 2 on the bottom. 1 times a to the 15 is just a to the 15, and because b is negative 8, we can just pop it to the bottom. Reciprocal means you just switch position. And this is probably how you will see the answer written. So it's a lot of little things. You don't have to do it this way. Some people from the very beginning clean this up. So some people would have taken the 2 and put it on top, and the b to the negative 4 and put it on the bottom. And you could do that as well if you don't like to see negative exponents. Okay, so go ahead, pause the video if you haven't done so already. Give yourself a shot at trying to do number 6 on your own. Okay, let me make one little edit here. I did say something wrong here. You actually cannot, this step here, you actually cannot switch it. And I'm going to ask you, why can't you switch this from here? And hopefully you said it's PEMDAS, right? PEMDAS says you have to play with exponents before you multiply. So I misspoke, I apologize. You must distribute that first before you play. So you have to get to this step no matter what. So now that I look back on this question, when I solved this initially, I am going to distribute the 2 into everything and also the negative 4 into everything. So we're going to get 3 squared. Don't forget to do it to the coefficient. The coefficient is the number in front. And then we're going to multiply, so it's 3 times 2, which is x to the 6, and negative 4 times 2, which is negative 8. On the bottom, we're going to have x to the 8, y to the negative 4. Once again, from here, we're going to 3 squared is simply 9. 3 times 3, which is 9. Then we have x to the 6 over x to the 8. And then we have y to the negative 8 over y to the negative 4. So we're going to continue cleaning. You're going to do here, we're going to have 6 minus 8. And it's almost, I paused because it's almost apparent that if you have 8 x's on the bottom and 6 on the top, that means you're going to be left with 2 on the bottom, right? Here, I'm going to switch these. We're going to rewrite this as y to the 4th over y to the 8th, which means I'm going to be subtracting. So y to the 4 minus 8. And again, it's kind of apparent that you're going to have 4 on the bottom. So the final answer is going to have that 9 on top, and on the bottom we're going to have x squared, y to the 4th. Alright, so hopefully that's not too bad. Trucking right along. Go ahead, pause the video, see if you can figure this one out on your own. So, going to assume that you've given it a shot. Let's do it together. So, what I'm going to start off doing is, because everything is raised to a negative, I'm going to take that parentheses, I'm just going to flip it. And that'll allow me to change my exponent to a positive. And then now, I'm going to take this 2, and it's going to go into every single value. You don't skip the numbers. Right? So this is going to become 3 squared, which I'm just going to go ahead and write 9 x to the 10th, because we're multiplying, y to the 4th. On the bottom, we're going to be left with 8 squared, which is not 16, but 64. And then x to the 4th, right? 8 squared means 8 times 8, which is 64. And this is over 1. Now, the other nice thing about this is the 4 and the 64 are going to divide out and leave me with 16 on the bottom. 64 divided by 4 is 16. Then let's put our x's together. So I have 1x here, 10 here, and 4 here. So I'm going to just stack them up. Let me do it this way. 1 over 16. Then we have x to the 1st times x to the 10th all over x to the 4. So I'm doing this so I keep things organized. And then we have the y. So we have y to the negative 3, y to the 4, and y to the 4. And actually, I don't have any y's on the bottom. Did I just write something? I did. Right here, y squared times negative 2 is y to the negative 4. So I forgot to include y to the negative 4. Apologize. Okay. So, from here, we are left with 1 over 16. Here, remember we said we add, so that's going to be 11. And then we subtract, so 11 minus 4 is 7. Over here, I'm just going to go ahead and do this. 4 plus negative 3 is 1, so all of this goes away with y to the 1. And, oops. And we can, over here, this is interesting. So the rule is that we subtract, so this is y to the 1 minus negative 4, which is y to the 5th. Now, if you don't like that, then you can also simply switch the positions. This was y to the negative, let me rewrite it. It was y to the negative 3, y to the 4 over y to the negative 4. So if that bothers you, what I just did now, you can just go ahead and switch the positions of these first two, right? So it'd be y to the 4th, y to the 4th, and then y cubed on the bottom. Then add these, that's 8, that's 3, and that'll give you y to the 5th, okay? But either way, you're going to get the same thing. And so that's my answer. You may see it written like this. But potato, potato, they both work. Alright, so go ahead, pause the video if you haven't done so already, and give this one a go. Going to assume that you've done that. And so hopefully what you did is you used my method of flipping top and bottom and keeping it positive. Okay. What you could do, I'm going to do this a little different. If you wanted to, you could clean up the inside first. So if I wanted to, I could clean this up first. So this would be 4t6, 3. Now, because m is negative, we're going to pop that to the top, and this is t cubed. This is all raised to the 3rd. Yeah. So from here, what I could do is, because I have t to the 6th and t to the 3rd, I have 4t cubed m squared over 3, and that's to the 3rd. And then from here, now I have to, right? And the reason why what I just did right now is legit is because I am following PEMDAS, right? I am just simply playing with the parentheses first, okay? But then we have to distribute the 3 to every exponent. So again, watch those coefficients. And now I'm just going to just clean it up. So this becomes negative 9 m to the 5th t. This right here is going to become 64 t to the 9th m to the 6th. And be careful, 3 to the 3rd is 27. Again, it's very easy to say that 3 to the 3rd is 9. Hopefully you didn't do that. And from here, 9 goes into 27 3 times, so we have 64 and 3. Right? We have m to the 5th and m to the 6th, so if that's okay, I'm just going to say m to the 11, because when the bases are the same, we add the exponents. And don't forget you have t to the 1 and t to the 9, so it's going to leave me with t to the 10. And that is my final answer. Okay. So the next bit is that we're going to write these next couple problems in scientific or standard notation. So the way scientific notation works is the leading number has to be between 0 and it has to, well, let me put it this way, it has to be greater than 0 and less than 10, okay? So basically it has to have a digit and some decimals. So what we're going to do here is, you see we have 3 and then we have 6, right? So I'm going to rewrite 2,600,000 as 2.6, and then we said that we jumped 3 and 3, which is 6, so this is going to be times 10 to the 6. And what I encourage you to do is go ahead and try this on the calculator, and you'll see you get the same value. And the reason why is, if I'm left with 2.6, this times 10 to the 6 means I'm literally jumping 6 spaces back, okay? Now, if it's written this way, we see 1, 2, 3, 4, so this becomes 8.8, because again, you need to have a digit between 1 and 10 times. Now, I jumped 1, 2, 3, 4, so this is going to be 10, but now this is going to be 10 to the negative 4. And recall we said that this is 1 over 10 to the 4th, right? So I'm taking 8.8 and I'm dividing by 10 raised to the 4, which obviously is going to give me a very small number. Okay, so if you have a small number, your exponent should be negative. If you have a big number, your exponent should be positive. And that's how I would try to get myself to think about it. So give yourself a shot at this one. Don't worry about the negative, just tack on a negative. So if this is 5.7 times 10 to the negative 8, we know we're going to take 5.7 and we're going to jump back 1 and then 7 more times because we're jumping 8 times, right? So this should be negative 0.1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, then put your 5, and then put your 7. And this would be written in what's called standard notation. So take note that here, we originally started in scientific, we were going to standard. Now I'm starting in standard and going to scientific. Okay? So real fast, if this is 1.9 times 10, I believe that's 10 to the 5th, then I'm going to just take 1.9. I write 9, I'm just 9, that's 1, and then I have 4 more zeros. So I have 9, and then I have 4 more zeros. Apologize, I'm almost out of time here. That gives me 198,000. So I have this one, and this one left to do. Oh, and this one. And there we go. That's it. So go ahead, take a look at those questions. See if you can figure them out. They are a little tough, and we'll do it in the following video. All right, guys, see you in the next video.